Hey guys, what's up? It's Grim, and today I've got a different kind of video for you in the form of a dungeon guide. Now this is some footage I've taken from my stream where I was pugging a 21 Freehold key. And throughout the course of this video I'll be talking you through the trash pools, boss tactics and other general tips and tricks you can use to complete this key. If at any point you want to check out my corruption, talents or what I'm casting and when, it's all in the top left hand side of the screen. Right off the bat here you can see me trying to roll some buffs of the turnip punching bag toy, which is very useful if you start in an outdoor area like you do here in Freehold. Unfortunately, like I said, this was a pug, we weren't on voice, so I couldn't tell my group that my buffs were terrible and they decided to start anyway. And if this happens, you want to make sure you stop attacking the punching bag about 6 seconds before the key starts, because otherwise you'll be in combat and you can't start the key. Now this pool here, the big 3-pack pool, is something you'll often see groups doing because it is good count and a relatively safe pool. The only two interesting mobs in these packs are the one I've got on focus, which is the Iron-Tide Bonesaw, who casts a heal that you want to interrupt. And the other one is the one I'm currently attacking, the Iron-Tide Enforcer. He does the brutal backhand, which is a frontal cone. He'll turn to someone random. And you really want to avoid this, especially on fortified weeks, because it hurts a lot. Now if you somehow find yourself lost among all the mobs, you can't see which direction he's facing, you can either pre-feint it, though on fortified weeks this may still kill you, and otherwise it's quite a short range, maybe 10 yards I want to say, so just run away from the pack and make sure you're safe first and foremost. Now most groups will use this pillar right here to skip straight through the boss. Some groups will even skip the 3-pack pool and go straight for this pillar. We are now coming up on the boss area. As you can see, we'll just finish off this Blood of the Corruptor real quick and then take the portal out. Now before the boss spawns, you're gonna have to kill one of 2 packs, one of those being the one we are pulling right now. And then there's another one at the bottom of the stairs behind the boss arena or area or whatever you will, that you can also kill, which has an extra mob in, but a lot of people don't pull that just because this pack gets in the way of baiting the poop, for example, during the boss fight. So most people just go ahead and kill this pack. Now this pack again has got a double Iron-Tide Enforcer, so again you want to be super careful not to get hit here by any of the brutal backhands. Now we are just about ready to pull the boss here, Sky Captain Crag, and he has 2 phases, the first being him mounted on his parrot, and he has a couple of abilities you want to look out for. The charge that he does right there is one of them, which will target the furthest away player and leave like a swirly where he's going to charge to. And you can stand in between him and the swirly and it won't damage you, which is not the same as many other abilities. You can see me do it right there. But for some reason you can do that with this guy and nobody really knows why. Now, the second thing you want to look out for is that he'll randomly melee people. He melees me here and I think he melees me again. Yeah, he melees me again. Now on higher Tyrannical keys you want to be especially careful of this because he can hit you twice in rapid succession and you will just die. So if you're playing a really high Tyrannical key, be very mindful of this and use a health pot or a health stone to make sure you're close to topped off at all times. Now in the second phase, the boss has another couple of abilities you want to be careful of. The first is the Azeroth powder shot. He did it right there. Now as a rogue, thankfully you can feint that and make sure you survive it, because on high Tyrannical keys it will one-shot you. Now if you feint the first shot early, your feint should be back up for the second shot that he does. If you don't have feint up for whatever reason, you can always cloak and even use cheat death as a cooldown to make sure you survive. If you fail all of that, you can always just run away and outrange it like the ranger do in here. If the tank tanks the boss on the other side next to the nest, you can hide behind the little planks of wood to line of sight him and the Azeroth powder shot won't hit you. Another thing you want to be careful of, as you've no doubt noticed, is the bird pooping all over the arena. Now when the boss phases, the bird will fly up from wherever you phase the boss, and the bird will fly half a circle clockwise and poop twice along the way, and he will always target the closest player to him. So the ranged can bait this if the tank moves the boss even slightly away. And throughout the rest of the encounter, the bird will do this poop twice, then drop down and charge across the arena, as you've seen him do a couple of times, fly up again, do another half circle, etc, all the way right until the end. Should you ever find yourself in danger of getting pooped on, you can use your cloak to negate the poop damage and then also the subsequent powder shot if that's due to happen anytime soon. Now after we kill this boss, the first thing my team is going to do is to go back into the obelisk portal while I go ahead and stealth all the way to the next bit. Now this is usually a relatively straightforward skip by just distracting the enforcer to the side and just walking past him. But unfortunately today the healer decided that he also wanted to go, so I had to change the skip up a little bit. I just put the enforcer to the side here, grapple away from him, and then vanish so he resets. As you can see, I got meleeed there, so in fortified weeks you want to be extra careful with that you don't get one shot. Now a lot of teams like to use this skip nowadays because it's much safer than having the whole team try to skip the enforcer in the way that I just did. The mob inside the obelisk realm doesn't spawn until someone interacts with the obelisk, which is me in this case. Now this week there was the drinking event, fortunately for us, which means I could get into the obelisk really easily. But on some weeks there will be the brawling event, which means there are two mobs close to the obelisk and you'll have to sap one and be really careful about how you enter the obelisk. The other event that can happen is the doggy event where you have to free a prisoner. And I'll probably edit in some footage right here about how you go ahead and stealth all the way through that. As you can see, you can follow the dog around the event in stealth for most of it. If you're ever unsure of whether you can get to the dog, feel free to just throw out a sap, then get to the dog and move on to the next pack. You shouldn't need it for the first 2 packs. You might need it for the 3rd pack, as you can see here. I'm not sure if you do, but it's better to be safe than sorry. Now on the last pack here, you want to sap the closest mob, start collecting the key from the dog, and you'll have like half a second leeway while you grab the key off the dog before the mobs attack you. So save your vanish for this, grab the key, use your vanish, and then go ahead and open the cage right here. After we kill Scary Joe here, we decide to go ahead and complete the event by talking to the Bilgewater NPC and getting the drunk debuff, which will make some mobs in the part ahead friendly and also one of the bosses in the Council of Captains. We then decide to pull this Vermin Trapper, who's only got one ability that you want to look out for, which is the Rat Traps, which you can't stun or disorient or whatever you want to do, but it will always recast. Now you can dodge the traps once they're on the ground by using something like evasion or riposte or like a demon hunter's blade dance, that sort of thing, to soak them all and not take any damage from them and clear them out for your team. Now we are about ready to pull the second boss here, the Council of Captains. And because it was the Bilgewater event this week, it means that Captain Eudora is on our side, which on Tyrannical weeks is very useful, and I'll get to that in a second. So it means that Captain Jolly and Captain Raoul are our only enemies. Now Captain Jolly will do the Whirlpool of Blades, which he does there, which will chuck a swirly blade at a random player, and then the blade will slowly make its way back towards Jolly. Now this is a little bit janky. It's meant to disappear when it gets to Jolly, but it doesn't always. So the tank usually has to keep it still for a little bit. Then there's the Cutting Surge there, and that's an example of something you don't want to be between the swirly and the captain itself, like you can on Sky Captain Crag. Now the other boss here is Captain Raoul, who does a barrel smash, which he is doing right now. But when Eudora is on your side, every other barrel smash will get stunned by her. So try to keep track of this. It's not super important because you can outrange it fairly easily. But it's nice to know when you don't have to run away from it and you can stand and soak one of the brews, for example, which is the next point we'll get to. During the boss fight, the bartender will lob brews at the captains. And there's 2 good brews, the crit brew and a haste brew. And then there's also a bad brew that leaves a really nasty dot that you want to try and get on the bosses, while you want to soak the crit and haste brews if you can and keeping the bosses out of them. If it is not Bilgewater week, Captain Eudora will be unfriendly, and that's something you want to really be careful of because she does a powder shot ability which targets a random player, and on high keys will literally one-shot you. You can vanish this when she targets you if you're quick, or cloak it even, but something you may want to consider is speccing into Ruthlessness instead of Cheat Death to pre-feint the shots and try and survive them that way. The other thing she does is a Grape Shot ability where she'll jump to a corner of the room and do a clockwise couple of big AoE conal shots. So you want to try and get behind her as soon as possible without getting hit by those. Now because it is the Bilgewater week, it means that we have to deal with harpooners and knuckle dusters in the coming trash pools. The knuckle dusters are not super dangerous. They have a cast that will interrupt any spell casting, but they can be CC'd or interrupted quite easily. The harpooners, however, are dangerous, and especially on fortified weeks. What they do is they will grab the furthest away player with a harpoon, as the name suggests, which does a lot of damage, and if you get two of those at the same time, you are probably just dead. So if you can, try to desynchronize them by stunning one for a long time with a between the eyes, for example. The other mob in these packs are the scrappers that you see me attacking here. Will cast a blind rage like what you see right there. Now, after they've cast this, you can interrupt them and they will stop the blind rage and just return to normal melee attacks. And you can use any sort of CC. I'd use gouge or a blind even, or between the eyes to stop that. If you see them going on other targets like, your healer, for example, try to just throw those out to help out your team. The Crusher here is a relatively straightforward mob that only does a small ground AoE that you want to look out for. As you can see here, I've vanished while my team is killing that Crusher, and I'm running over to the Ring of Booty to start the pig RP. Now this is quite a long little bit of role play. As you can see there, it takes nearly a minute. While the RP ticks down, we decide to kill some more mob packs, and all these packs are some sort of composition of the mobs I've already talked about during this week. Now if it is not the Bilgewater week, you will have to deal with Bilgewater Brine skills in some of these packs. Those are casters that aren't super threatening, but they do a Frost Blast ability that you want to interrupt because it is a large cone that does a lot of damage. As the RP is now over, we decide to go into the arena and try to complete the first part, which is catching this little piggy called Lightning. Now you have to click him or her or it 5 times, and I can highly recommend having some sort of interact with target macro or keybind if you can. This will make it a lot easier to click the pig and complete this as soon as possible. While we wait for yet more RP to complete after we've caught the pig, we decide to do something that most groups these days, I believe, which is to pull all the rest of the trash into the arena here. This is once again the same composition of mobs, depending on which pirate captain was friendly this week. The tank here decides to pull all the mobs onto Ludwig von Tortolen, who is a big old trash mob affected by Fortified and not by Tyrannical, who throws out shells just like, Mario Kart, and they are very dangerous. Don't get hit by them. Jokes aside though, while Ludwig is engaged, or Throthak for that matter, don't leave the arena or try to cross the boundary of the arena in any way, even after you release and try to run back, because you'll get pelted by rotten food, which honestly does a stupid amount of damage and will kill you. Now, Throthak is the third boss in this dungeon, which is a relatively straightforward boss. He throws sharks at people. The ranged usually kite them through the blood puddles that you see to slow them down. Now the other ability is a shark tornado, but if you're playing Outlaw, you can just stand outside of this and use your very, very long arms to keep hitting the boss. If for some reason you can't do that, or you're playing Assassination, you can use Evasion or Riposte, respectively, to still hit the boss. Something you want to be careful of here is the positions of the sharks, because the boss will pick his sharks back up and jump to the sharks and hit anyone who's in between him and the shark. Make sure you're not ever in between him and the shark. Other than that, this boss is fairly straightforward, albeit one that takes a very, very long time to kill on Tyrannical. This right here is a good example of when I use Riposte to just maneuver myself around the boss and away from the sharks. Now, after we've killed this boss, we decide to take the obelisk. This week it had a Grand Slam Gary, or the tank buster, in, and take it all the way straight to the last boss. As we are about to kill this mob here, the observant viewers amongst you will have noted that we haven't killed the spider yet, which is because the spider obelisk in Freehold is kind of in an awkward spot, and a lot of teams opt to just play it with Hard and Sweet because he's not very threatening and is easily controllable. As long as you got a good interrupt rotation going, this should be fairly straightforward. Hard and Sweet has very little to watch out for except the cannon barrage that you can see going out there. Now while he is above 2/3 HP, he will only target one player with this, and that player usually drags it away from the group while the other players dodge it as well. One thing of note, as you can see here, is you don't need to walk fast to drop the pools and also dodge them. I got very, very slowed by my corruption there, but you can probably even backpedal and still be able to dodge all of the shots. The other thing you want to look out for here is the mobs that hard and sweet will occasionally spawn, the bombardiers. They'll fixate on a random player, and if they reach them, will explode for a lot of AoE damage. Usually you've got a hunter trap or druid roots or a mage with ring of frost or dragon's breath take care of this. But should things get really difficult, as you can see there, I decide to blind them up, which instantly kills them as well. But obviously this is on a 2-minute cooldown, so don't rely on this too much. Once Hard and Sweet gets under 2/3 health, he'll start to target 4 players, all of them except the tank, with the Cannon Barrage. Usually you try to stack up for this and make sure that they all land in roughly the same spot, which usually takes up half of the area here that you have to fight the boss in. Then when the next set of bombs come in, the other ones should despawn and you can move the boss over to there. Something some high-end teams do is pull the big trash pack that's close to this boss into this barrage, because the bombs also damage the trash. But this requires a lot of really good coordination and is difficult to pull off, so it's probably not something that you want to attempt to do in pugs. Once the boss gets under 3rd HP, he'll start taking extra damage, and try to hold on to your cooldowns for this if you can, but not if they're really long and you might miss a cast on them. Now we still need some trash in this key, and we decide to do this pack here, and mostly because of the Ravager mob that you can see. He casts Painful Motivation on himself and 2 other allies. Also be careful of the patrol, you can see him distracted there. And when he casts this Painful Motivation, the allies and himself will get a debuff that will basically kill them very quickly. Now another mob you want to be careful for in this pack is the Oarsman right here. Make sure to interrupt his Sea Spout casts, which creates geysers, I guess, under people that knock you up and do a bunch of damage. Now, if you do decide to pull this patrol, which doesn't happen often because the officer has a lot more health than a lot of the other mobs, then be careful of the buccaneers who cast a Blade Barrage, which is a very short range frontal but does a lot of damage. So make sure you don't stand that. And with that, I think I've covered basically everything there is to cover in Freehold for rogues. If you guys enjoyed this, let me know. If there's anything else you want to know, of something you didn't like, also let me know in the comments. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more of this type of content. If you want to see me stream, catch me on twitch.tv/Grimwow, and I hope to see you guys in the next video.